Hi there, shall we start with the differentiation today? The part of the calculus most of the time is involved in the further math, but for some of the exam board, it's also involved in the GCSE math. Okay, so question 1 says, y equal to 7x squared, work out dy dx, which equal to 7 times 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1, which equal to 14 times x. And that's the answer for the question. Let's move on. Question 2. Y equal to 3x cubed minus 8x. The dy dx should equal to 3 times 3 times x to the power of 3 minus 1 minus 8 times 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. Let's simplify it. 9x squared minus 8x to the power of 0 equal to 9x squared minus 8x to the power of 0, which can then be simplified into 9x squared minus 8. And the reason for that is because x to the power of 0 always equal to 1. And then let's move on. Question 3. Y equal to 8x cubed plus x minus 4 dy dx equal to 8 times 3 times x to the power of 3 minus 1 plus 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. And the minus 4, I'm afraid that it's just going to be cancelled out after we differentiate it, which equal to 24x squared plus x to the power of 0, which can be simplified into 24x squared plus 1. And that's that. And by the way, guys, if you're interested in how did the minus 4 just got cancelled out after the differentiation, maybe I can change the color of my pen and we can talk it through in detail on the right-hand side of my screen. I'll put it there. So let's assume that y equal to minus 4. What exactly is minus 4 in terms of x? Can I rewrite it into y equal to minus 4 times x to the power of 0? I think we can do that because x to the power of 0 equal to 1. Okay, so now that we got y equal to minus 4 times x to the power of 0, if we were to differentiate it, dy dx would equal to minus 4 times 0 times x to the power of 0 minus 1. And then you realize, okay, it's minus 4 times 0 times something else. So the final answer would definitely equal to 0. This is how it got cancelled out after the differentiation. Alright, and then let's move on to the next part. Question 4. Y equal to x to the power of 7 minus 3 times x to the power of 6. dy dx would equal to 7 times x to the power of 7 minus 1 minus 3 times 6 times x to the power of 6 minus 1, which equal to 7x to the power of 6 minus 18x to the power of 5. And then let's move on. Question 5. Very interesting question. We got a bracket multiplied with another bracket. My suggestion here is let's expand the bracket before we do any differentiation. In other words, let's simplify it first, shall we? Y equal to x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8. Y equal to x squared plus 6x plus 8. And then we turned it into something that we are familiar with. Let's then do the differentiation. dy dx equal to 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1 plus 6 times 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. And plus 8 will be cancelled out because it's constant value. We talked about it before. A constant value after the differentiation is not going to exist anymore. So dy dx equal to 2x plus 6. And then that's that. Let's move on. Question 6. Y equal to 5x squared minus 3x plus 7. We do the differentiation like we always do. But in this case, they said when x equal to 1. Very interesting. It seems like that we need to do a substitution at some point. Well, anyways, let's do the differentiation first. dy dx equal to 5 times 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1 minus 3 times 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. And plus 7 after the differentiation is not going to exist anymore. And then let's move on. Equal to 10x minus 3. Okay, so that's the dy dx. But then the question said, could you find the value of dy dx when x equal to 1? Well, in that case, let's substitute it in, shall we? Dy dx equal to 10 times 1 minus 3, which would equal to 7 in this case. Okay, and that's the final answer for the question. Let's move on to question 7. We got another bracket. Just like before, let's simplify it. Let's multiply it out of the bracket before we do the differentiation. Y equal x to the power of 4 minus 4 times x cubed. Dy dx equal to 4 times x to the power of 4 minus 1 minus 4 times 3 times x to the power of 3 minus 1 equal to 4x cubed minus 12x squared. Okay, and then let's move on. Question 8. We don't really have a bracket multiplied with another bracket. In this case, they write it as bracket squared. But to be honest, it's sort of the same thing. Let's simplify it first and then do the differentiation. Y equal to 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. Y equal to 9x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 4, which equal to 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. And now let's do the differentiation. Dy dx equal to 9 times 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1 minus 12 times 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1. And the plus 4 at the very end, same thing as before, is going to be cancelled out after the differentiation. So dy dx equal to 18x minus 12. Okay, there we go. And let's move on to question 9. Question 9 is very different from all the questions that we have seen before. We start to have fraction in the equation. And my suggestion here is let's rearrange it in a way that we are familiar with, shall we? Y equal to 1 over 3 times x to the power of 9 plus a quarter times x to the power of 4 is equivalent to what we got before, but we are just more familiar with this. And then let's move on. A third times 9 times x to the power of 9 minus 1 plus a quarter times 4 times x to the power of 4 minus 1. A third times 9, which is 3, x to the power of 8 plus a quarter times 4 is 1, so that's x to the power of 3. And that's that. Let's move on to the next page. It says y equal to x cubed plus 4x squared plus 2 when x equal to minus 2. Could you show the value of dy dx is minus 4? This is a show that question. However, we still need to carry out the procedure of differentiation. Let's do the dy dx first. Equal to 3 times x to the power of 3 minus 1 plus 4 times 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1. And the constant value 2 at the very end is not going to be there anymore after the differentiation, which equal to 3x squared plus 8x. And then we need to substitute x equal to 2 into dy dx. When x equal to minus 2, dy dx equal to 3 times minus 2 squared plus 8 times minus 2, which equal to 3 times 4 minus 16. 12 minus 16, which is minus 4. And double check at the very end. Did we get the answer that they're asking for? Yes, we have successfully showed that the dy dx have a value of minus 4 when x equal to minus 2. And then let's move on. For question 11, shall we expand the bracket? Y equal to 3 minus 6x minus x plus 2x squared. Y equal to 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. We finally convert it into something that we are familiar with, and then let's do the differentiation. Dy dx equal 2 times 2 times x to the power of 2 minus 1 minus 7 times 1 times x to the power of 1 minus 1 equal to 4x minus 7. And there we go. Let's move on to the next question. Question 12. We got another bracket squared question, and this one seems more complicated because we got x to the power of 4. But don't worry, let's expand the bracket, shall we? Y equal to x to the power of 4 minus 3 times x to the power of 4 minus 3, which equal to x to the power of 4 times x to the power of 4 minus 3 times x to the power of 4 minus 3x to the power of 4 plus 9. In order to simplify the first term, I hope you guys remember the power and indices is supposed to equal to x to the power of 8 minus 6x to the power of 4 plus 9. And then if we do the dy dx, a equal to 8 times x to the power of 8 minus 1 minus 6 times 4 times x to the power of 4 minus 1. And the 9, which is a constant value, not going to be there after the differentiation, which equal to 8x to the power of 7 minus 24x to the power of 3. And then let's move on to the next question. For question 13, not only we got a fraction, but also the x squared that is in the denominator. My suggestion is exactly the same as before. Let's try to convert it into something that we are familiar with. But how do we do that? Well, don't worry, let me show you guys step by step. Y equal to 3 times 1 over x squared, which we can then convert it into 3 times x squared to the power of minus 1, which equal to 3x to the power of minus 2. Now that we have converted into the form that we are familiar with, then let's do the differentiation. Oh, by the way, they didn't really write anything there, but at the bottom of the page, it seems like that they need a differentiation. dy dx equal 3 times minus 2 times x to the power of minus 2 minus 1, which equal to minus 6x to the power of minus 3. And before we keep going, in case you guys are interested in this part of conversion, how did we convert 1 over x squared into x to the power of minus 2? It's time for me to remind you guys. If you got 1 over a equal to a to the power of minus 1. If you got 1 over b, a equal to b to the power of minus 1. And if you got 1 over x squared, a equal to x squared to the power of minus 1. If you got 1 over y cubed, a equal to y cubed to the power of minus 1. Alright, and I think that's pretty much it for today. I'll see you guys next time. Please like and subscribe. Bye bye.